As far back as I can remember, I've had this sort of like an infatuation with the universe and space. You know, yeah, I just, even now I can stand outside on a clear night and just gaze at the stars, just look at the universe. In my backyard on a really clear night, I could actually see the clouds, the space dust from our Milky Way. It's crazy. It's just a beautiful thing to see. I mean, as far back as I can remember, I've wondered if there was really other life in the galaxy. There's got to be something, right? As a child, I saw intriguing films like E.T., Close Encounters. You could tell I'm feeling a little nostalgic. Close Encounters, Star Wars, Alien, scary film that I saw. Predator, my teenage years. And more recent films like Contact, Interstellar, and Avatar. I've always been intrigued by this whole phenomena or the sensational ideas of there being life somewhere else in our universe. When I was a kid, I used to have a neighbor. His name was, I'm not going to tell you his name. I had a neighbor, and I remember more recently, he expressed something on Facebook, and he said he had never told anyone this story. And what he had wrote, and it's crazy. All right, so what he had wrote was that he lived in around the corner from me, a bi-level house. I lived in a split level. He lived in a bi-level, and his house was not too far off the street. And I remember him expressing in his Facebook message was that he and his sister were in the living room one night, and they saw a lot of lights outside of their living room window. I don't know what he said they were doing, but it was late. I think he was saying it was like 11:30. So they went to the window, and he said that they saw a disc-shaped object hovering in the front of the house with bright lights, and then it moved up over the house to the back of the house, and they ran to the back of the house to look out the windows to see what it was. And then it just took off. He said it was a spaceship. It was a UFO. A lot of times when we hear stuff like this, we start saying, "Man, that's bull, man. Man, you need to get your head checked." Nothing like that can happen. There's nothing on this planet that can move like that. Nothing on this planet. Nothing that we know of that can move like that. Therefore, it's implausible. It's ridiculous to suggest. He said, he went on, I asked him, I was, because like I said, I've always been intrigued by the whole idea of life being elsewhere in the galaxy, let alone our solar system. And he said the reason he never said anything is because he didn't want people to think he was crazy, but he couldn't hold it in anymore. So he typed that, and I swear, after he typed that on Facebook, I haven't heard from him. I don't know what happened to this dude. He was my childhood friend, at least neighbor. He was an associate. But disappeared, gone. Don't know where he is now. Baron Davis, the basketball player, he claimed he was abducted by aliens. Listen for yourself. Listen to what he says. Is it possible? Was he joking when he said he was abducted by aliens? The experience that he had? I don't know, man. This is a big universe, right? Shaquille O'Neal said he was abducted by aliens. I think Michael Jordan said he was abducted by aliens. Billy Carson.
What's really amazing is when you look into some of the ancient tablets, like the Atrahasis epic or the Enuma Elish in the Seven Tablets of Creation, you find out that something written thousands of years ago talks about this Ijiji working class Anunnaki race that was living on Mars and made their way to Earth. These could possibly be the fallen angels mentioned in the Bible. So they came down to Earth. Why? Supposedly, according to these tablets, they were mining and working for resources on Mars and got very tired of it. They were doing it literally for thousands of years. They wanted some type of relief that they weren't getting from their rulers or kings. The kings were Enki and Enlil, who were primarily ruling over Earth. So they fell from Mars to Earth, so to speak, and they came here to go to battle. They were going to have a coup against the kings of Earth. And then that's when Enki said, I have a suggestion. I'd like to genetically modify the existing hominid on this planet, make them into a slave race to take over your workload.
You know, and you know, I remember first listening to Billy Carson. I remember thinking, man, this guy is really like, the things he's saying is just going to make people think he's crazy, you know. But I mean, when you hear several people, and people who, you know, we don't consider them to be crazy, you know, telling you stories that they were abducted by aliens. I mean, you got to wonder, are we alone? Billy Carson is a very knowledgeable brother too. You know, I mean, he obviously reads a lot. He runs off titles to texts that I go and research, and you know, they're actual texts. And you know, my man is just spitting them off his, you know, they just pop off his mind like ammunition. You know, he's just really versed in what he knows. So I respect him, you know, and who's to say whether or not he's right or he's wrong, you know. I think it's a lot easier for people to just, you know, just write someone off as being crazy, you know, than to actually understand that this phenomena could be very real. I mean, what about the pilots? All right, let me just let you listen to this pilot. Okay, listen to what he says.
UFOs in broad daylight. In 2017, the New York Times released not one, but 3 short videos taken by US Navy pilots showing footage of crafts that are impossible to exist, flying faster and harder than any man-made object. They were called Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, or UAPs as the media quickly dubbed them. The focus of this video will be on the first of these filmed encounters, which took place in 2004 and was observed by the pilots from the aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz. An encounter with a craft that was oblong and white in shape, akin to a giant pill or a Tic Tac breath mint, which is why this has become known as the Tic Tac UFO. So what happened out there over the lonely Pacific Ocean in November of 2004?
Roger, there's troubleshooting.
Did you box moving target?
No, I took an auto track.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh, dude.
Wow, look at the fly.
Former Navy fighter pilot Brian Graves has a new article in Politico titled, "We Have a Real UFO Problem, and It's Not Balloons."
When talking about the various objects that have been shot down over the U.S., there's been a pretty clear bifurcation between what we've been calling a Chinese balloon and what these other 3 objects are. And while we don't know what they are, the fact of the matter is we should know what's above our head at any given time, whether it's a national security issue or whether it's a scientific question. We need to figure out what's above our heads.
I mean, there are good actors in this world. I saw this movie called Wag the Dog where you had Robert De Niro, and I forgot who the female actress was. People can make up stories. I mean, these guys who were pilots, they could be acting, but do you think so? I mean, I don't know. I mean, the story just seems so believable. Who's to say? You know, Neil deGrasse, he gives a lot of information about the universe. One of the things he said is that, you know, the same things outside of the same things that make up our body also make up the universe. nitrogen, hydrogen, carbon, oxygen, the primary elements that make up the universe, are in our bodies. What he has to say about extraterrestrial life.
I think some people still look up.
Yeah.
And you can't help but wonder, with all these stars, we know enough to know that they're stars just like the sun, and they've seen the newspaper headlines, they're planets orbiting these stars, and if they're planets, how could you not wonder if there's life? And if there's life, is it intelligent life? And if it's intelligent life, could they be smarter than us? If they're smarter than us, should we be scared of them, or should we, there's a whole...
So what's your best guess?
My best guess is that the universe is teeming with life.
The universe?
Well, and our galaxy in particular. Our galaxy is sort of proxy for other galaxies, is teeming with life, but that complex life might be much rarer.
Why is that?
Well, here's the argument. You have the timeline of the Earth. Earth is born, and this is today. That's 4.5 billion years. Yeah. Now, put this planet out there, and some planets are born yesterday, some were born at the beginning of the universe. You don't know when in the timeline of a planet you're going to land there. So here's Earth. Throw a dart at the timeline. Most of the time the dart hits Earth, there's only single-celled life.
Wow.
And so if we are randomly coming upon planets and Earth is any measure of things...
Single-celled life is like an amoeba? Is that what
Yeah. We spent 3.5 billion years as single-celled life on Earth. And then we have something called the Cambrian explosion of life, where the chemistry of the atmosphere changed. There's oxygen. Oxygen is like rocket fuel for complex life. And life now has the carte blanche to become complex because the system can support it. And now you get limbs and detectors like eyes and sensors, and it's a stunning development in the fossil record of life on Earth. And so then you'll have complex life. Now ask, so that's a smaller piece of the total timeline. Now you ask, how often would you throw the dart will you find intelligent life? Well, that's this little bit that we define as intelligent. And so if Earth is any measure of anything, throwing darts at planets that we might land on, who is to say that we're going to land right at that moment where...
He believes the universe is teeming with life. Teeming. Understand teeming. It's like a petri dish filled with bacteria or protozoan, microscopic organisms all living together. Germs, bacteria. Like our Earth is teeming with bacteria. To say that he believes the universe is teeming with life, some people would think, you must be crazy, man. A lot of people... We have this complacent idea that has been passed on to us by our predecessors, and we tend to feel like we're the center of everything. There's a whole lot that can go with this. Perhaps it's man's need to control the masses, by which they learn from comedic examples and refashion theological texts today that controls the masses. But what happens when those texts have been misconstrued or maybe not put together correctly because you're trying to omit certain aspects of the text? And we know that the book of which I'm referring to has absent text. There's text missing. You might have to ask yourself, why is that text missing? What was the strategy in getting rid of it? And to also take into consideration that around 53 BC, the Romans conquered Kemet. It was already, pretty much in shambles. It's at the end of the New Kingdom era. But they burned over 40,000 books. Like, why did they burn those books? Today we see things in America where, you have governors of certain states trying to ban certain books. They're burning them too. I even worked in a school in a city and was told to throw away several history books, just throw them in the garbage. And maybe 5-6 years later, there's a new addition to the history books for the schools in the city that I was working in. And excuse me, they were basically the same books that I had thrown out. It's just a different cover on it. And, me being a history teacher, I found this to be disturbing. But I bring that up just to make a point. If the Romans were burning books, 40,000 of them, and then it just so happens that the Christianity that many people practice today is built on the foundation. The various denominations are built on the foundation of Catholicism, and Catholicism comes out of ancient Rome. And ancient Rome did not even practice Christianity until let's say about 300 or so, 350 years after it spread into Eastern Asia, or Northeast Asia, from Western Europe into Northeast Asia, which would be present-day Russia, which was under the Byzantine Empire at that time. So you figure it took that amount of time for them to refashion what they had learned out of Kemet over and over and over again. Constantine and leaders like Justinian used theology to control the masses. Now, I bring all of that up to say this. What happens to our concepts of theology if we find out that there's life on other planets? If there were other civilizations in other solar systems in this galaxy, in the movie Avatar, if any of you watch science fiction films like that, in the movie Avatar, they were praising Awa, which, it almost sounds like they're using the names that we use on the planet, Awa, Yahweh, this connection with the earth and spiritual, us being able to connect with a spirit tree was like connecting with your ancestors, and you can hear your ancestors' voices, by way of Awa, and all of that's in the film, right? Could it be that there's other worlds like that? If you listen to Billy Carson, you listen to Neil deGrasse, the universe, you would believe, based on what they say, that the universe is teeming with life, which means that it may not be as complex as ours, but it is some form of life. But who knows? Who knows? Are there other humans somewhere else, or what we would declare humans? Is there other advanced civilizations? Because if there are UFOs, clearly there's an advanced civilization. You have beings somewhere who have the mathematical and the scientific skill to be able to put things together technologically in order to travel through space. And understand that when you go out in space, from what we understand as humans, is the reason that we don't travel in space is because once you take off into space, you don't know how to turn around. We don't have the technology to navigate through space, to move us around. Not only that, the planets are moving. Imagine what it would be, how challenging it would be to jump onto a moving target. Imagine a train flying by really fast, and you trying to jump from a bridge and land on this train. You want to make sure that you land on a car, not in between them, and not miss the whole train altogether. You want to land on it. Imagine how difficult that would be. Imagine how smart you would have to be. So the question of whether we are alone in the universe is still unanswered. While there's no definitive evidence of extraterrestrial life, given the vastness of the universe, it's considerably possible that there must be life out there. The universe is so large, it just seems it would be foolish to assume that there's no other species out there like us. And you figure that the galaxy that we live in is like the depths of our mind and our memory. Our mind, as much as we have synapses in our brains and our minds that carry these different memories, we have over 300 billion synapses in our brain. That many opportunities for life is in our galaxy. because there's over 300 billion stars, like there are synapses in the brain. And if mathematical probability would have it right, that would mean that there has to be extraterrestrial life, right? It just, just 4,000 is the probability of having planets around other stars is more than likely, right? It's high, exponentially high. And you figure if you have other planets around other stars, and there's 300 billion of them, there's over 4,000 opportunities for there to be a planet, other planets. Got to be maybe at least one, right? In this huge galaxy, you figure Earth accounts for less than 5%. Not just the solar system, but in terms of what it represents in terms of the galaxy, we're a speck of dust. And there's so many other specks of dust out there comparatively to Earth, or that compare to Earth. Well, I don't know if I shouldn't say compare to Earth, because we don't really know if there's any other terrestrial planet out there that could sustain life the way Earth does for us. It was a book I read one time, a book, a science fiction novel about some men, humans who had found, created a civilization or a colony on another planet. And they were afraid of whatever alien was out there, because every time men went outside of this dome that they had built on the planet, they were getting killed. So there was a warning that went out to other adventurers or people who would go and venture the planet, that, if you go out there, you could potentially die, so you probably shouldn't do it, blah, 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 blah. This one character in the book goes out, and he encounters this alien, but at first looks like just a shadow of himself. He's sitting, I forget what he was sitting for, I might have been eating something, but the shadow took on the image of him sitting. Everything he was doing, the shadow was doing the same thing. What he learned was that it wasn't a shadow. In fact, it was tiny organisms that created a shadow of himself. And, they were trying to communicate with him by creating the shadow. So other people who would lash out at the shadow, then the alien would attack them, I guess dissolve them or whatever. But it was just interesting, because that could be the life form. Something that we just don't understand, something that it's so enigmatic, so unfathomable to us that we just can't imagine, and we just can't see it as being a possibility, But to me, this galaxy is so vast, it's so beautiful. You see all these stars, you can really get lost in it. And anyone who's traveling out in space or tries to, this is, right now they want to travel to Mars, tear up this planet and maybe go to Mars and then tear up Mars too. But maybe there's a reason why they're not successful. Maybe there's an energy that's at play to keep them where they are. Something unfathomable to us as well. Maybe, the intelligence level, we haven't quite reached that as a species on this planet. There's a whole lot of reasons that could fall into it, but that you would have to be able to fly from this planet to another planet that's moving at a different speed than this planet, and you'll be moving at a certain speed as well. And if you miss that planet, you're off into the universe, and you more than likely will never be heard of again. But, the probability of another planet or a moon like Earth existing in our galaxy is difficult to estimate precisely. However, based on current scientific observations, it's believed that there could be a significant number of exoplanets within our own Milky Way. Fact of the matter is that our Milky Way galaxy has moons that have Earth-like qualities and characteristics. I think that's what that movie Avatar was actually based on. One of the moons was outside of Jupiter, I believe. But the exact number and distribution of such planets are still actively being pursued. People still really don't know. they're still doing the research. And with the discovery of thousands, not just a few, but thousands of exoplanets in recent years, including some in the habitable zone of their stars, and the possibility of finding Earth-like worlds within our own galaxy appears promising. To some, have NASA put it, if NASA was to put it down, one day we'll be able to get there, I remember when I was a kid, there used to be this show that used to come on called Space 1999, and all of these human beings were living on these colonies on the moon. I remember as a kid, obviously it was before 99, and it used to be like, we're going to really be there in 99? So now we're hearing the same things, space travel is coming, and it might, I don't think the type of space travel that we see in the Star Wars movies and things of that sort is something that we'll see in our lifetime, but perhaps it is a promising thing once man figures out how to use solar energy. Because you figure there's nothing but solar energy when you travel out into space. You got the sun, there's other stars as well, but if you can use, I imagine something like that anyway, like being able to use solar energy and be able to travel. But how would you turn? That's the thing. How would you turn and go in other directions? So anything else that's doing that, think about it. Scientists haven't even discovered what appeared, they haven't discovered what appears to be the technology that makes these UFPs, they call them unidentified flying phenomena, these UFPs, they haven't really figured out what makes them do what they do. But what they have discovered, in addition to these things that I talk about, is that, through the Hubble telescope, is a very powerful telescope, that they've discovered other galaxies. In addition to ours. So if ours has over 300 billion stars, they're filled with stars just like ours, stars and suns just like ours, these other galaxies. What does that recognition of this reality do for religious perspectives? Back to that. Is this perhaps one of the reasons why there's so much secrecy when it comes to UFPs? Is it to keep people from feeling fear? I get excited about these things because, I remember hearing of stories of ships being lost in the Bermuda Triangle and people talking about UFOs, they would call them UFOs, unidentified flying objects, going in and out of the water of certain Caribbean territories, and or not necessarily Caribbean, that whole Ring of Fire area, the Pacific. So the Pacific is the largest ocean on the planet. In fact, when you were looking at the pilots from the clip I just showed, they were flying over the Pacific. And if you didn't see the clip, I will share the name and the credits at the end of this podcast. And you can go and look it up yourself. And you can listen to these men's testimony there, and have them explain their accounts with these unidentified flying phenomena. You figure how amazing it would have to be. Our solar system is like a vortex. It is a vortex. It moves in a vortex, contrary to what we've been taught in high school and everything. It's a vortex. We're moving through space, and we're kind of like a corkscrew, and the planets are moving around the sun, as the sun is like a bullet going through our galaxy. If you take a look and you figure, as planets are moving, you figure what kind of a ship or technology would you have to be coming from outside of this moving solar system with planets moving around it and be able to land precisely on one. Remember what I said, like jumping onto a train. That's crazy. How do you do that? Think about if this is true. The Earth travels around the sun at over 250,000 miles per hour while it's rotating on its axis at over 1,000 miles per hour. How would a species calculate the time and direction of the set course? Think about how much math that is. If they're coming from out of the galaxy or somewhere deep within the galaxy, when they set off on their trip to the planet, the solar system nor the planets would be in the same place that they were when they set off on their trip. So to calculate it so that you land on one of these planets would be, I mean, you can imagine why so many people find this phenomenon to be implausible as well as impossible. It's like, how could that happen? How could you take off from somewhere far out in the galaxy and pinpoint Earth and land right here, right on the planet, while it's moving the way that it is? While it's moving at over 250,000 miles per hour around the sun. I mean, it would take an intelligence exponentially greater than what we would call genius by human standards to create a ship that could travel through space without fuel, or at least what we understand to be fuel. But imagine the intelligence of a species being able to build something that can take them through space and then land on a planet with precision. Who's to say that it's possible or impossible? Basically, who can say what's impossible in this vast universe? Something to think about. Peace and blessings, y'all.